DuPont innovation lowers LCOE by increasing cell efficiencies and system lifetime while reducing total system cost. Materials matter.
That is, for me, the show of industry.
Hello and welcome to the PV-Tech Newscast. The headlines this week: Deutsche Bank predicts an imminent upturn for the solar industry. First Solar buys GE's CdTe thin film IP and forms a new business partnership. And exclusive to PV-Tech, an error leaves at least 16 Chinese manufacturers in EU trade limbo. The solar industry is on the brink of a sustained period of momentum, according to a bullish research note by Deutsche Bank financial analyst Vishal Shah. The note predicts that a rebalance in the supply and demand of polysilicon, the growth of new markets, and stabilizing module prices will make 2014 a pivotal year in the industry's development as the solar sector reaches an inflection point. The PV industry was said to be at a pivotal moment for grid parity in more than 10 major markets worldwide and will likely maintain this momentum even with elevated polysilicon prices. As module prices stabilize at around 60 to 70 cents per watt, levelized cost of solar electricity without subsidies is now 10 to 20 cents per kilowatt hour in several major regions of the world. Rising electricity prices, a need for competitive generation sources, and lowered balance of system costs will drive further improvement over the next several years. Demand outlook is also improving due to strong demand from Japan, China, US, and other emerging markets. The supply situation is also a lot better, as Chinese Tier 2 and 3 supply cuts have accelerated over the past 18 months. A clerical oversight in China has resulted in at least 16 manufacturers being excluded from the EU trade agreement, PV-Tech has exclusively learned, after the European Commission issued final documents on the anti-dumping agreement with China. A list of companies that were party to price undertakings and module supply quotas has left multiple names out, despite the companies claiming they agreed to the deal that came into force on the 6th. As a result, they will now be subject to the EU's punitive anti-dumping tariffs, which are as high as 47.6%. The error could take up to a month to put right. How these companies will be given a supply quota if the ceiling secretly agreed has already been dished out is not known at this time. Companies listed in the annex of an EU document published on the 3rd of August are excluded from the duties on the agreement that they implement a minimum import price. PV-Tech has confirmed with multiple manufacturers that this level will initially be set at 56 euro cents per watt. This level will be held for 12 months from the 6th of August before being reappraised. Many of the details of the deal remain unknown, such as the all-important total size of the import cap. The fear is that leading European project developers and distributors could face supplier preference shortages should demand from premier suppliers exceed quota supply. According to data compiled by PV-Tech on 6 leading publicly traded Chinese module manufacturers' shipment data from 2012, companies such as Yingli Green, Trina Solar, Canadian Solar, JinkoSolar, JA-Solar and Hanwha SolarOne could have been allocated around half of the rumoured 7 gigawatt annual cap. Companies such as Renesola, which have third-party manufacturing agreements in Europe of around 300 megawatts, could potentially be able to double their market share in the EU, as they would also be able to ship modules into the region from China. Other major news this week saw US industrial giant GE cancel plans to ramp its own cadmium telluride thin film operations in Aurora, Colorado, instead selling the intellectual property portfolio to CdTe leader First Solar. First Solar has issued 1.75 million shares of common stock as part of the transaction, while GE will retain the shares for at least 3 years. As part of the deal, GE Global Research will collaborate on future CdTe solar technology development with First Solar. They will also team up on commercial levels that include purchasing and branding First Solar's modules for future global GE PV power plants. The collaboration will also include power plant equipment, such as PV central inverters, controls, balance of plant, and ownership of utility-scale systems. GE had achieved a higher record for cell efficiencies than First Solar, though at higher costs. First Solar would also be increasing its R&D expenditure by $75 million to accommodate the R&D collaboration with GE, yet noted that it was unlikely to update its technology and production cost roadmap until next year, and integration of GE's technology would not appear in production for around 2 years. First Solar also said that it has purchased project developer Element Power's 1.5 gigawatt project pipeline for the US and Mexico. Financial details were not disclosed. First Solar now has potential bookings of 8 gigawatts, with 1 gigawatt of module-only sales, 1.5 gigawatts of mid to late stage deals, and around 6.6 gigawatts under development for the next 12 to 24 months. First Solar also reported second quarter 2013 sales of $520 million, a 31% decline from the previous quarter. Sales have declined for 2 straight quarters from a fourth quarter 2012 peak of over $1 billion. Management also highlighted that it would be delaying 2 projects that were previously expected to be complete and sold in 2013, resulting in the company lowering full-year revenue guidance from between $3.8 and $4 billion to between $3.6 and $3.8 billion. Reports suggest a deal is in the making that could see Suntech Power Holdings' bankrupt subsidiary rescued by the involvement of a rival Chinese PV manufacturer and several state-owned enterprises in Wuxi, China. Reports say that Suntech Wuxi is in talks with 5 enterprises over separate deals to provide a much-needed cash injection, with the company having debts of around $1.75 billion. The Wuxi regional government is said to be actively participating and reportedly said that creditors, which included numerous Chinese banks, would have to take a haircut on loans or face higher losses. An official was also quoted as ruling out a liquidation of the company. Based on a deal being struck with a possible Chinese rival, a cash injection would be part of the deal, suggesting a merger is on the cards. And in related news, Suntech said it had regained compliance with the New York Stock Exchange's minimum share price listing requirement, having fallen below the $1 mark after defaulting on a US bond and its manufacturing division entering bankruptcy proceedings in China earlier this year. And finally, residential PV storage capacity could hit 2.5 gigawatts by 2017 as domestic solar generators increasingly look to consume the power they produce, a report claims. Research by analyst firm IHS predicts a boom in domestic solar storage in the coming years as self-consumption replaces feed-in tariff maximization as the main motivation for installing residential PV systems. This shift is already underway in Germany, where in May a government-backed subsidy was introduced to cover the upfront cost of installing a small-scale PV storage system. Storage systems allow PV energy to be stored at times of peak production and consumed at times of peak demand, when grid electricity costs are highest. The cost of residential PV systems is currently too high to offset the gains made through electricity bill savings, even over a 20-year system lifetime. But with initiatives such as Germany's storage subsidy, the economics look more attractive, IHS said, with the additional benefit that greater take-up of storage technologies in countries such as Germany will make them cheaper elsewhere. For battery-based residential PV energy storage systems, IHS predicts an average cost reduction of around 45% during the next 5 years, largely due to decreases in battery prices. It also predicts cost reductions in large-scale solar storage technologies, with this segment of the market expected to reach 6 gigawatts by 2017. And that's all for this week. Make sure you watch next Friday's newscast, and in the meantime you can stay on top of all the breaking news via our website and our Twitter feed. Thanks for watching.